Hello, and welcome to today's show, Legacy Living, Make Your Life Count. I'm your host, Dr. Gloria Burgess, international leadership expert and trusted advisor. Welcome to Legacy Living, Make Your Life Count. I'm so delighted that you joined me today. I have a special show for you. We are going to talk about leadership, a topic that is very near and dear to me. I am going to focus specifically on authentic leadership. In other words, today's focus is all about being true to who you are, being true to being yourself, right? Now, today I'm going to share with you a true story. This is a story about singer and actress Delarice Patricia Earley. Now, many of us know her by her stage name, Della Reese. Ms. Reese was born in Detroit, Michigan. Now, although she had siblings, she was actually raised as an only child. When she was very young, 6 years old to be exact, she began singing in her church, a beginning that would eventually lead her to become an avid gospel singer. On weekends, she and her mom would go to the movies. When she got home, Della was fond of acting out scenes from the various movies that she saw. Who knew that this would eventually lead her to a career that included radio, television, and films? In the mid-40s, Della began her career directing the young people's choir at her church. While she was still in her early teens, she was hired to perform with one of the best-known gospel singers in the world. That's where Della's life was touched by an angel. In her own words, here is Della's story. The summer I turned 13, I was given an opportunity that would ultimately shape my life. You might say I was in the right place at the right time. I prefer to think God sent an angel. I was chosen directress of the youth choir at the Church of Our Faith in Detroit. All the major gospel singers came to our church: the Soul Stirrers, Mighty Clouds of Joy, Pilgrim Travelers, but the most celebrated was Mahalia Jackson, the woman who would one day be known as the Queen of Gospel. That day, our church was packed to overflowing. Dressed in their Sunday finery, people cooled themselves with hand fans. I was to sing the first song of the concert, Christ is All. Excited, I began softly and built from there. I tore it down, and the youth choir was with me all the way. Then Mahalia was introduced and started to sing. Tambourines were playing. People were clapping. Everyone was caught up in the joy of singing praise. The heat in the room rose along with the spirit. Suddenly, the lead soprano in Mahalia's group collapsed. A doctor discovered the soprano was pregnant. There were 6 weeks remaining on the group's tour, but the woman's husband was adamant that she not get back on the bus. Mahalia was going to need a replacement fast. Reverend Travis, one of our ministers, recommended that she take the soloist and directress of the youth choir, 13-year-old Delarice Earley. Now, the challenge was to convince my mother. When Reverend Travis offered to speak to her, Mahalia decided to come as well. They walked The 4 blocks to our apartment building, me tagging behind them, praying all the way, "Please, God, make Mama let me go." Up the 3 flights of stairs we climbed. Mama met us at the door. "Good evening, Reverend Travis," she said. "I'm always glad to see you." Her eyes let me know she assumed that I had done something so wrong that the preacher had to bring me home to her. But the first words from Reverend Travis were, "Mrs. Early, it's my honor to introduce you to Miss Mahalia Jackson." "I am the one being honored," my mother insisted. Now, Mama started looking at me with those looks that could cut rock. It was clear she thought whatever it was I had done to the offense of Miss Jackson. The Reverend made his case for letting me join the tour. My mother listened politely. "Mrs. Early, I assure you," Mahalia spoke up, "I will take personal good care of your daughter and see to it nothing happens to her." "It will be a great learning experience for Delarice," the Reverend added. Mama was impassive. She said she would pray over it and let them know her decision in the morning. I barely slept that night. At breakfast, I crept into the kitchen, trying not to look too hopeful or desperate. I made the coffee, set the table, and washed the dishes as Mama used them. My mother said nothing. My father came in for his breakfast. Afterward, Mama fixed us lunch, kissed him goodbye, and cleaned up the remaining dishes. I waited. After what seemed an eternity, she said, "We have to talk. And you know God is going to be talking right along with us." Didn't sound good. Mama took a drink of coffee. "I didn't think you should go, but I asked the Lord to tell me if it wasn't right. He didn't." I exhaled a sigh of relief. "I know this can be good for you," she went on. "All I need is your honest word that you will do the best you can." I promised and hugged and kissed her. I thanked God and everybody in the Bible, Reverend Travis and Miss Mahalia Jackson. When I finally quieted down, Mama said, and I will never forget these words, "We don't need all of that. All we need is your honest word. And remember, you won't just be giving it to me, you will be giving it to God too." "I give you my honest word," I said. "I'll do my best." Mahalia turned out to be twice as tough as my mama. "Where are you going? What are you doing? Why are you wearing that?" Things even Mama let me do on my own, Mahalia had to know about. The music, however, more than lived up to my expectations. The crowds were sensational, and Mahalia was magnificent. Our last engagement, a grand Sunday afternoon tent revival, was in Chicago, Mahalia's hometown. This was going to be my chance to show what I could do. People from all over would be coming to hear Mahalia and me. In my mind, that was the group, Mahalia and me. The other 3 singers were just for background. When Mahalia called on me to start the program, I confidently began to walk the sawdust cover of the tent floor and do my thing, singing with all my might. Responses came from all around me. "Amen! Hallelujah! Praise the Lord!" I even heard Mahalia add her own, "Sing, child!" Everyone was applauding wildly, asking for more, but that was it, my big solo. I had no other number. Thinking fast, I began to sing another chorus. I turned it out and tore it down, then sat down, smug as could be. When the crowd quieted down, Mahalia remained seated and began to moan. No words, no song in particular, just moaning low and deep, until she broke out in "Precious Lord, Take My Hand." Mahalia sang the entire song seated. It seemed she was speaking directly and only to God. The audience responded with reverence and awe. They got a different kind of feeling from Mahalia than from me. What was it she had that I didn't? I wondered. My voice was just as good. In fact, in my mind, it was better because I could hit higher notes. It took 2 more summers of touring with Mahalia for me to realize just what that something was. My singing was enjoyable, rhythmic, cute. Hers was a deep spiritual experience. She was worshiping God, and I was showing off. When Mahalia sings, said my mother, you can feel God in her. By the end of my 3rd tour with Mahalia, I thought I had learned all there was to learn from her. I was wrong. One summer day, we arrived at a church in a field outside Richmond, Virginia. That night, the church overflowed with people. When it was my turn to sing, I started with all guns blasting. As I hit my high note and held it, I heard a note higher than mine, clear and powerful. Undaunted, I hit a higher note and held it as I walked down the aisle trying to see who was singing. There in the back row, I saw a girl with braids, dressed in coveralls and a farm shirt. She smiled at me, still singing higher and higher, until she hit a note that I couldn't even reach. Ooh, was I mad. Who did that country bumpkin think she was? When the program was finished, Mahalia talked to the girl and her mother. Seeing that, I stormed out to the car, where I sulked. Soon I heard Mahalia saying, "There you are, Delarice." I looked the other way. "That was something, wasn't it?" Mahalia said. Ain't it grand, the way God has of bringing up talent in the strangest places? I jutted out my chin and said, "I guess now you weren't her, right?" "What makes you think that?" "Well, she sang higher than I did." It's not about how high you sing. It's about feeling the presence of God. I knew she was right, but I said nothing. Then Mahalia said sternly and directly, "Delarice, you've got to get over your Miss Wonderful thing and just be who you are. You are not in competition. You are in God's service." She paused, smiling now. Be glad that he called you, but always remember you are not the only one he called. Now get out of this car and come meet this child. I followed Mahalia inside and went over to the girl, who asked how I sang so well. She didn't even know what a powerhouse she was. Mahalia was my guiding angel, though I didn't know it at that time. The lesson I learned that night helps me to this day. I never could sing like some of the top artists who inspired me, Dinah Washington, Sarah Vaughan, Ella Fitzgerald, but you know what? They could not sing like me either. What I had was my own. Today, I'm free of the fears of my youth and settled in the assurance that comes only from surviving. And Mahalia's words have echoed throughout my life. You are in God's service. I just love that story. It provides a great example of what being authentic is all about, doesn't it? And what a great fit for today's topic, authentic leadership. Now, remember I said that earlier, authentic means really being true to who you are. It's all about being yourself. Now, it's been said, in a world where you can be anything, be yourself. So I know some of you are asking, how does that work? I mean, it's not always easy to be yourself. In fact, for some of you, I know that being yourself is easier said than done. I hear you. I once taught in a graduate program where the entire focus of that program was helping my grad students become comfortable with being themselves. This was a program that equipped them to work in what we lovingly call the helping professions. So when they graduated, they would become consultants, therapists, nurses, educators, attorneys, assuming some kind of leadership role in their organization or community. Now, I know firsthand that being yourself can be quite challenging. Think about it. So many of us focus on pleasing other people. In the process, we can easily lose track of who we are along the way. Now, that's a pretty steep price to pay. Fortunately, there are many ways to get back on track with being who you are meant to be and to discover your strengths as well as your growing edges. You can begin by asking yourself a few questions. Ask yourself, what's unique about me? What's unique about me? What makes me so special, right? Another question to ask is, what are my top 3 strengths? Another question, what do I enjoy doing so much that I lose all track of time? What do I enjoy doing so much that I lose track of time? How about this question? What do I enjoy so much I would do it for free? And another question to ask is, what am I curious about? Now, any one of those questions can help you figure out who you are, really. Who you are at the core. What is your authentic self, right? Now, these questions are important. They are designed to help you reconnect with what's meaningful to you and to help you reconnect with who you are, to fully claim your glorious self, your magnificence. Now, there are a few critical skills that we all need, skills that will support you in truly being yourself, not only as a leader, but in all other realms of your life. What are those skills? Well, there are 4 of them. 4 that I want to shed the light on today. And these are essential. Now, I actually write about these skills in one of my books. It's called Flawless Leadership, Connecting Who You Are with What You Know and Do. So here are the 4 skills. The first one is self-awareness. That's right, that's a skill. Self-awareness. The second one is openness. The next one, transparency and curiosity. Now let's start with self-awareness. Being yourself actually begins here, okay? It begins with self-awareness, the conscious knowledge of your own desires, feelings, motives, thoughts, and traits. This skill also includes the capacity for introspection, for looking inward, in other words, and the capacity for reflection, okay? Now, this skill of self-awareness is vital to your ability to ignite, influence, and inspire others. When you are self-aware, you will be better equipped to embrace, reflect on, and use your unique strengths, talents, and gifts. You will be able to recognize what drives you and what gives you energy, focus, and purpose. You will also be able to develop and clearly communicate your vision, right? Now, why is this important? Because you will be able to inspire your team or your organization to take meaningful action. Now, this is essential whether you are leading at work or in your family. The next skill is openness. Now, this skill is often misunderstood because we confuse openness with self-disclosure. Openness simply means being able to internally recognize, being able to freely access, and then being able to appropriately express your feelings and thoughts without being defensive, right? Now, this sounds pretty straightforward. I'm going to repeat those things again. Openness simply means being able to internally recognize, freely access, and appropriately express your feelings and thoughts without being defensive. Pretty simple, right? However, demonstrating this skill in the moment can be quite challenging. In fact, it can be downright difficult. Why? Because when we're triggered by someone or something and we don't realize it, we can easily respond inappropriately and defensively, right? In that split second, in that nanosecond, right? We become temporarily immobilized. We actually freeze, which impairs our ability to internally recognize, freely access, and appropriately express our feelings and thoughts without being defensive. We've all been there, right? The key is to develop your ability to self-regulate so that when you're emotionally triggered by something or someone, you can consciously manage your own reactivity. This is one of the many aspects of what we call emotional intelligence. Now, the third skill is transparency. Transparency allows leaders to make information that is normally selective, normally seen by only a few people. These leaders allow that kind of information, that selective, information, to be available to all as appropriate. An example is providing insight into a leader's decision-making process. Providing such insight can be very helpful during times of change and transition. And we're always going through some kind of change or transition, right? I remember in one company I worked for, the staff learned that we were going to be bought out. We were going to be acquired by a rival company. Now, the staff were intensely loyal to this organization that we worked for, right? Including me. And not surprisingly, when we heard the news about being bought out by another company, we were all just kind of wobbly, right? Shaken to the core. It seemed as though we were being taken off guard, blindsided, right? As if no one had seen this coming. However, the really senior staff had seen it coming, even though they couldn't reveal the specifics until after the buyout, after the acquisition was complete. Now, many of us have heard something like this. Information is the solar energy of an organization. In other words, even a little bit of transparency will go a long way. Now, the need for transparency has never been greater in our organizations and communities and families. In fact, as old, outworn, containing structures and systems and hierarchies continue to dissolve, And as our organizations and communities struggle to survive, leaders must be equipped to fill the void. In a world, what we call a VUCA world, V-U-C-A, right? Where volatility, uncertainty, ambiguity, and chaos are becoming the norm, such leaders will be equipped to support their organizations, their communities, and their families to adapt, innovate, and flourish. Now, that fourth skill, curiosity, let's talk about that. Leaders who are curious are inquisitive, avid learners, learners who desire to learn or know more. They actively and vigorously cultivate and nurture and leverage the skill of curiosity. You know what? Even though we're naturally curious as children, as we grow older, we may not necessarily retain our curiosity. I remember as a little girl, my family moved from rural Mississippi to the inner city of Detroit, Michigan. And we lived in some pretty rough neighborhoods, okay? Now, during the hot, humid summers, instead of playing outside with the other kids, I had to go to school. Unlike most kids who attend summer school because they flunked a course, I went to summer school because my dad said so. He actually mandated it. He was the headmaster, our house was the classroom, and my sister and I were his pupils. So every day, while our friends played outside our house, in the street, or in the yard, we completed our daily lessons. Now, we studied hard, me and my sisters, to pass the tests that Daddy gave us after dinner. During those Detroit summers and for years afterwards, I remember asking my dad about particular words or concepts that interested me. And without fail, Daddy always said, "Look it up. Look it up." Can I just tell you something? This is not what a young person wants to hear. But as a dutiful daughter, I always followed my father's advice. Now, was my dad being mean? Well, I admit, that's what I thought, though I had the good sense to keep it to myself. Right? So what was he doing? My dad was actually helping me cultivate an appetite for curiosity. He was instilling in me and my sisters the awareness, knowledge, skills, and resourcefulness for lifelong learning. And you know what? It worked. I became very good at being curious and quite skilled in satisfying my curiosity. In fact, I became a voracious learner. The more I learned, the more I wanted to learn. And the more curious I became. Now, as a visual learner, I was very good at memorizing words and their definitions. I was fascinated to learn that some writers had a knack for arranging words in such a way that their work just came alive. It just kind of leaped up off the page, right? While other writers were just downright dull and boring. Although I didn't realize it at the time, I was actually learning about the writer's voice, about the writer's tone, and about the writer's style. Looking up words and other concepts stimulated my thinking, fueled my appetite for learning, and spurred my lifelong curiosity. Cultivating the skill of being curious also expanded my world far beyond the one I knew, the 6 square blocks of my neighborhood in East Detroit. Being curious, along with other qualities of being, has opened so many doors and so many opportunities to build relationships, to be able to work with people that I would never have otherwise met, and to serve people in over 30 countries on 6 continents. So what am I saying here? I am saying that the skills of self-awareness, openness, transparency, and curiosity are the foundation stones for developing personal mastery. They are the foundation stone for becoming yourself. Each skill is distinct and each one is essential. Each skill builds on itself and all of the other skills. Together they work in concert to support you in being who you truly are. Now, for those of you listening today all around the world, if you want to make your life count, if you want to be the change you seek, remember this: how you live is how you lead. That's right. How you live is how you lead. It's how you do everything. You have the power to make our world a better place by showing up in your own 2 shoes, showing up as your authentic self. All right. Now, I want you to be sure to listen to this show again and again. And hey, be sure to tell somebody. You can find me right here on iTunes, Audible, Alexa, SoundCloud, iHeart, TuneIn, Spreaker.com, Talk Network Radio, and so many other places. Now, if you happen to miss any part of this week's show, or if you missed last week's show, you can simply download the recording and listen to it at your convenience. You can even listen to it on the go. Check us out at www.talknetworkradio.com/hosts/legacy living. That's talknetworkradio.com/hosts/legacy living. You can learn more about my work and Legacy Living Make Your Life Count by visiting the Gloria Burgess website. And that's very easy. It's gloriaburgess.com. Or by visiting me on LinkedIn or Facebook. And on Facebook, you can find me at facebook.com/DR for Dr. DR Gloria Burgess, PhD. You can also check out one of my TED Talks at TED.com. Before I close today's show, I want to thank each of you for tuning in today, for allowing me to share a bit about my journey with what legacy living is all about. Not just living and learning, but living, learning, and serving so that you make a difference in your own life and in the lives of other people. It's about being on purpose every single day, 365, 24/7. Legacy living is a powerful way to make your life count. Once again, I want to thank you for joining me for today's show. I'm your host, Dr. Gloria Burgess, and this is Legacy Living Make Your Life Count. Please join me again next time right here on Talk Network Radio for another show of Legacy Living Make Your Life Count. Don't just count the days in your life. Make the days in your life count. That's what legacy living is all about. Have a fantastic day, and remember, make the days in your life count. God bless. That's our show today. I'm your host, Dr. Gloria Burgess. I hope you'll join me again next time. Until then, don't just count the days in your life. Make the days in your life count. That's what legacy living is all about. Here's to you. Have a fantastic day, and be sure to make it a yes kind of day. Remember to celebrate the music of your life. Make the days in your life